What's going on, fellow reformers? It's the Reformation Keegan, and I'm here today with a brand new video. And that video is going to be me ranking my top 5 Superman covers in my own personal collection. So, we're going to start off with a really good one. And before I start, actually, I want to say this. When I'm ranking these covers, it's a combination of everything. So, to compartmentalize what goes into ranking them is based off of many things, but mostly there's aesthetic appearance, so the appearance of the cover, but also the overall legacy of the book too. So when I was going through all of my Superman comics, I thought about each of these factors, and there are one or two of them that are based off of aesthetic appearance, and the other factor is variety. So I was looking again at legacy, aesthetic appearance, and the variety that each comic brings to the table. So we're gonna get started with Superman for All Seasons 2 by Tim Sale. So Tim Sale, if you don't already know, is one of the best comic artists of all time. Some people love his style, some people don't, but I think his style is among the best, and I think it fits Superman perfectly. And you have to also look at the rhetorical impact of the art and how the art fits into the story that's being told by the writer. And I think Tim Sale's art with Jeff Loeb's writing style always complements that. And plus, I love the color scheme of this, and I also love the fact that Superman is soaring through Metropolis almost on top of it. I think it looks really good. And this is probably my favorite book of the four, which is also, again, book two. So, Superman for All Seasons is probably in my Mount Rushmore for top Superman comics. It's up there with All Star Superman, Superman Red Sun, Superman Secret Identity, all of those greats, and I could list 100 more. But Superman for All Seasons holds a special place in my heart because the art to me is very grassroots, and it really fits the narrative that you're getting in this, because you're getting four different points of view of Clark slash Superman. So that starts off the list. Then up next, we have, speaking of grassroots, the Adventures of Superman, number 424. And I had to have a classic in here because classic Superman art to me is very overlooked. I would even say it's underrated, and the term underrated is very overused in today's day and age. But I love this art style because it to me is Americana. Even though I'm not American, there's something very American about this art. And what I mean by that is what the constituents were at the time of America. So like you have obviously the eagle, which is a huge symbol of America, and you almost have an American dream aesthetic here. You have Superman standing on top of a building, with all the glory looking off into the sun. And I like the little intertwining in definition of the yellow sun beaming off of him, and this reflection looks fantastic. All the yellow on top of the blue, in the cape flowing in the wind looks great, and the background of the color also in the landscape of Metropolis and the city aesthetic of that looks tremendous. So I love this. I think this looks great. And and this is also by Jerry Ordway, by the way. I forgot to mention that, and actually said that down here. But yeah, the Adventures of Superman covers, I think a lot of them are very overlooked, and I think this is probably the best one in my humble opinion. All right, so we got a few more. Okay, up next is Superman Adventures 1. So this one to me ticks both boxes. I think the cover is, one, fantastic, and two, this just happens to be book one of a really good series. And I'm actually trying to collect all of these, but some of them aren't easy to get, and some of them actually get quite expensive. So, for instance, the first appearance of Livewire goes for around $40, but I managed to find it on Free Comic Book Day for half off. So it's not an easy set to acquire, but it is attainable. And this also derives from Superman the Animated Series. And if you want a really hot take, I believe that Superman the Animated Series is just as good as Batman the Animated Series. Not saying it's better. All I'm saying is it's just as good. So based off of legacy and aesthetic appearance, Superman Adventures 1 gets a spot in the top 5. I also don't have these in any set order, by the way. I didn't rank them in order because I think they all sentimentally have equal value. So, speaking of sentiment, the next one is also a number 1 in a series, and it just happens to be Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman. In my opinion, and in the opinions of probably 98% of Superman fans, this is the greatest Superman story of all time. So how does Clark/Superman work against time? You find out in this. And what I love about book 1 is if you dig deeper into the definition of the cover, you can almost see Superman is sitting on a cloud, which he is, but this is almost like a symbol of him buying his time. So he has 1 year left. And how is he going to make use of that year? And it's almost a moment of reflection and simultaneous contemplation. So simultaneity is very present in this cover, which I think makes it great because there's a lot of stories being told just in this first cover. And again, the aesthetic appearance also looks fantastic. I love these images where you have the hero kind of in their own mind, but still talking to you at the same time, but looking on in the distance. I think there's a lot going on in this, and if you haven't read All-Star Superman, you have to. It has to be in the first few comics that you read. I wouldn't read it first, though, because I think the narrative is a little bit advanced for a newer Superman reader, so I would recommend a story such as For All Seasons to read first, where you can get, again, different perspectives of the character. But this is definitely one you have to read because, in my opinion, it is the top Superman story. And this cover, like I said, tells many stories within one. So based off of rhetorical impact, you have to have this in your top 5. All right, and based on all of the conventions I listed previously, this cover coming up, last but not least, kind of defies that, but I had to have it in here just because it is a work of art. So we have Superman 685 by the legendary Alex Ross, illustrated, not written by Alex Ross. So I love this. I'm a huge fan of Alex Ross's art. I would say his art style is my favorite, but I also do love others like Chris Samney, Darwyn Cooke, etc. However, there's something very poetic about the illustrations of Alex Ross. Yes, they use a lot of realism through the pastel work that he does, but I think that there's always a great sense of pathos in his illustrations. He says a lot without having to use any written vernacular, which is very hard to do even in art. But you can even see through the portrait-like picture, you have Superman and John Kent kind of consoling, cradling, and the way that Superman looks down says a lot about this. And Alex Ross is really good at capturing the emotional impact based on a story and also in the facial features of his characters. I think that's what Alex Ross does best, maybe better than anybody that I've seen. So that's why this is on here. And just based off of pure beauty and pure beauty and pure story, just even within the title, you have to have it in here, in my opinion. I had to have at least one Alex Ross cover in here, and because they all tell a story, whether the story's a one-shot or the story's a limited series, you have to have some Alex Ross in your top 5. Because, I mean, if you even look at the landscape of the picture, you can see that he uses different color modes through pastel work, which is very difficult to do for a comic. And I truly believe that his realism really captures the real life stories that are captured in Superman. Yes, Superman is not human, but he acts more human than anybody else. And I think that's what Alex Ross does here, is he really captures the humanity of Superman. Because we know that John Kent is a human being. However, we also know that Superman acts like a human being. He looks like a human being because I think he is a human being. Yes, you can use the term alien, but when you're thinking about what it means to be human, which is very subjective and I can get very philosophical about it, I would say that the definition that we have come up with in our own limited primitive knowledge actually complements what Superman does. And that's what this cover, in my opinion, does in the end. So that's why it's in my list. So that was my list, guys. Let me know what you think. What is your top 5 Superman list in your collection in terms of covers? And I will do more. I'm thinking actually about doing a Batman one. So let me know if the demand is there. I might even do a Shazam one too. Maybe the Flash. Let me know what you think. And most of all, hit that like button. Feel free to comment, engage, and most of all, subscribe. I'll see you soon.